You've done the math, pulled out the calculator, ran the numbers, figured out your FIRE number, 25 times annual expenses, 4% withdrawal rate, clean formula, confident result. Maybe it's $1 million, maybe 1.5 million, maybe 2 million if you're planning to live well. You've got the number, you're building toward it. You feel like you have a plan. Here's the problem. The number is wrong, not slightly off, not a minor miscalculation you can adjust for later. Specifically, structurally wrong in ways that could send you into early retirement with a number that fails within 15 years. And the people teaching you the 4% rule aren't lying to you. The research is real. The math is sound under specific conditions. The conditions just don't match what most Americans retiring early in 2026 are actually facing. Today, we build the real number, the one that accounts for what early retirement actually costs in the current environment, the one that survives bad market sequences, healthcare costs, inflation, and the tax reality that nobody puts in the thumbnail. The 4% rule, what it actually says. Before we break it, let's be precise about what the rule actually is. The 4% rule comes from the Trinity study, published in 1998. Researchers analyzed historical market data and found that a portfolio invested in a mix of stocks and bonds could sustain 4% annual withdrawals, adjusted for inflation, across a 30-year retirement period with a high historical success rate. High success rate, not perfect. Roughly 95% of historical 30-year starting periods worked. 5% ended in portfolio depletion. 30 years. If you retire at 65 and live to 95, 30 years. That's the window the research was designed for. Here's where it breaks down for FIRE specifically. If you retire at 45, you need the money to last 50 years, not 30. At 50 years, the 4% rule's historical success rate drops meaningfully. Many researchers now suggest 3 to 3.5% as the appropriate rate for retirements lasting 45 to 50 plus years. At 3.5% withdrawal rate, you need 28.5 times annual expenses instead of 25. On $60,000 annually, that's $1,710,000 instead of $1,500,000. $210,000 difference from one assumption change. And we're just getting started. The healthcare bomb. Here's the one that hits hardest and gets mentioned least in FIRE content. If you retire before 65, you don't have Medicare. You're buying private health insurance on the open market for potentially 20 plus years before Medicare kicks in. Right now, in 2026, the average individual ACA marketplace premium for someone in their mid-40s is roughly $500 to $900 monthly, depending on state and plan selection. A family plan runs significantly higher. $1,200 to $2,200 monthly is not unusual. And these premiums increase as you age. A 55-year-old pays more than a 45-year-old for equivalent coverage. A 64-year-old, the year before Medicare, is paying the highest private market premiums of their life. Let's run this conservatively. You retire at 45. You budget $700 monthly for individual health insurance coverage. By 55, that same coverage costs approximately $1,100. By 64, approximately $1,600. Average across the 20-year pre-Medicare window, roughly $1,000 monthly, $12,000 annually. If your current employer plan costs you $300 monthly in employee premiums, you've budgeted $3,600 annually for healthcare. The retirement reality is $12,000. Gap, $8,400 annually. For 20 years, that's $168,000 in healthcare costs. Not in your FIRE number. And that's before we discuss deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, dental, vision, and the genuinely unpredictable cost of an actual health event. The sequence of returns problem. The 4% rule assumes average returns. Your retirement doesn't deliver average returns. It delivers whatever returns happen to show up in whatever order they decide to arrive. And the order matters enormously. Here's why. You retire with $1,500,000. Year 1. Market drops 25%. Portfolio is now 1,125,000. You still need 60,000 to live on. You withdraw 60,000 from a portfolio now worth 1,125,000. Your withdrawal rate just went from 4% to 5.3% without you changing anything. Year 2, market recovers modestly, but you're withdrawing from a smaller base. The recovery doesn't help you as much as it would have if you'd never sold. You get a few more bad years early. The portfolio is now critically small. Even a full market recovery doesn't bring it back because you've been selling shares throughout the decline to fund your lifestyle. This is sequence of returns risk, and it's the specific failure mode that kills early retirement portfolios. The people who run out of money in retirement don't usually do it because they were wrong about average returns. They do it because they got bad returns in the first 5 to 10 years and couldn't recover. The practical response: build a cash and short-term bond buffer of 2 to 3 years of expenses outside your invested portfolio. In down market years, you withdraw from the buffer. The invested portfolio stays intact and recovers. In good years, you replenish the buffer. 3 years of 60,000. 180,000 sitting in high-yield savings or short-term treasuries. Not invested, not compounding aggressively, just sitting there as insurance against bad sequence risk. That 180,000 is not in the standard FIRE calculation. It's additional capital required to make the strategy actually survive. The tax reality in 2026. Here's the piece that almost nobody covers correctly. Most people accumulating for FIRE are doing it in traditional pre-tax accounts. 401k, traditional IRA. Pre-tax contributions reduce your taxable income today, which feels great while you're working, but every dollar you withdraw from those accounts in retirement is taxed as ordinary income. You need $60,000 to live on. To net $60,000 from a traditional account at a 20% effective federal and state rate combined, you need to withdraw $75,000 gross. Your FIRE number isn't based on $60,000 annual spending. It's based on $75,000 annual gross withdrawal. At 3.5%, $75,000 in required gross withdrawal means you need $2,143,000 in your traditional accounts, not $1,500,000. Additionally, large traditional account balances create required minimum distribution problems. At age 73, if you've accumulated $2 million plus in a traditional 401k, the government forces you to take distributions whether you need the money or not. Those forced distributions can push you into higher brackets in later retirement years. The Roth conversion ladder, converting traditional account money to Roth during low-income early retirement years, is the standard FIRE solution to this. It works, but it requires planning, a 5-year waiting period per conversion, and living on taxable account money in the interim. This is manageable if you plan for it. Most people don't plan for it until they're already retired. What inflation actually does over 50 years. The 4% rule adjusts withdrawals for inflation annually. You withdraw $60,000 in year 1. If inflation is 3%, you withdraw $61,800 in year 2, and so on. The math works in the model. The problem is what 50 years of 3% inflation actually does to the real world. 3% inflation over 50 years reduces purchasing power by approximately 78%. The $60,000 you withdraw in year 50 buys roughly $13,200 worth of goods in today's money. This means your lifestyle in year 50 of retirement is dramatically reduced from year 1 in real terms, unless your portfolio has grown dramatically. Additionally, your personal inflation rate is not the general CPI. Healthcare inflates faster. Housing inflates faster in many markets. Long-term care costs, the ones that become relevant in your 70s and 80s, inflate faster. The standard FIRE calculation uses CPI. Your actual cost of living in retirement inflates at a rate that may be meaningfully above CPI, depending on your spending composition. The lifestyle you'll actually live. Research on early retirees consistently shows the same pattern. Spending in the first 5 to 7 years of retirement is higher than projected. Not because people are irresponsible. Because when you have unlimited time, you do more. The travel you deferred while working. The hobbies that were constrained by a 9-to-5 schedule. The experiences you can now actually pursue. Early retirement is an active phase for most people. It is not the quiet, low-cost life that spreadsheet projections assume. Then there's a middle phase of relatively stable, moderate spending. Then there's a late phase where healthcare and potentially long-term care costs spike dramatically. Long-term care is the financial risk most FIRE content ignores entirely. The average cost of a private room in a nursing facility in the United States is currently over $100,000 annually. Home health aid services run $40,000 to $70,000 annually. These costs inflate faster than general CPI. If you spend 3 to 5 years in late life care, you're looking at $300,000 to $500,000 in costs that your FIRE number almost certainly doesn't account for. Long-term care insurance purchased in your 40s costs significantly less than purchased in your 60s. Most FIRE practitioners either ignore this or self-insure with a larger portfolio buffer. Either way, it's a cost that needs to appear somewhere in the calculation. The real number. If you're planning to spend $60,000 a year and retire at 45, the traditional FIRE formula suggests you need about $1.5 million. But a more realistic calculation paints a different picture. After accounting for a safer withdrawal rate, taxes, healthcare before Medicare, a cash buffer for market downturns, and long-term care, the real number is closer to $2.6 to $2.8 million. That's more than $1 million higher than the standard estimate, and it could mean the difference between a retirement that lasts and one that eventually runs into trouble. What actually protects you? There are two ways to reduce the amount you need without taking significantly more risk. The first is staying flexible with your spending. Instead of withdrawing the exact same amount every year, you spend a little more when markets perform well and cut back during difficult years, helping your portfolio last much longer. The second is earning some part-time income. Bringing in even $20,000 a year means your investments only need to provide $40,000 instead of the full $60,000. Dramatically reducing the size of the portfolio required. Financial independence doesn't always mean never working again, it often means having the freedom to work only when you choose. Many people pursuing FIRE are aiming for a number that's simply too low, not because they're making mistakes, but because the popular calculation ignores major realities like healthcare costs, taxes, market volatility, and long-term care. The goal isn't to reach the smallest possible number. The goal is to reach the number that can realistically support your lifestyle for decades. A few extra years of saving may feel frustrating today, but it can be the difference between the illusion of financial independence and the real thing. Know your real FIRE number and build toward that instead.